Hey all, Matt with Timeless and Tough here, and wanted to take a moment and share with you guys how to re-burnish and re-dye the edge of a leather midsole welt and heel stack when they've started to lose all of their color and that dye has started to come out. You'll notice this after either hard work or just wearing them for a long time, that boots, if you have a natural midsole and heel stack, they'll start to lose some of that dye, whether it's black or brown or even a natural burnish. I actually had this a couple of weeks ago where I was out in the snow for about 4 hours working, came back in and I had these Nick's mock toe boots and the midsole and the heel stack were pure white. They had lost all of their burnish, had absorbed the water from the snow. And so I wanted to re-dye them and make them look good. And I've been doing some very amateur leather working on the side for a few years, fixing tool belts, making belts and wallets and what have you. And so there's a good chance the information I'm going to tell you is imperfect at best, but it works for me, and so hopefully it will work for you. So 3 steps to go about re-dyeing your midsole and heel stack. The first is to clean it off. If you've got mud caked in here, if you get anything like that, take a brush, take some water, and just clean it off and get all of the gunk out of there before you go to dye it. Step 2 is going to be to actually go ahead and dye the midsole and the heel stack. I use Phoebing's leather dye, and typically when you use Phoebing's, you'll see these metal wands with kind of a pom-pom on the end, and people will dye their leather with that. I find I get too much leather and it ends up bleeding out everywhere when I do that. It's tougher to control. So I use one of these paint pens. I'll go ahead and throw a link to the Amazon, a link to these in the description. You just fill these up with the Phoebing's dye. It has a large chisel tip, and you go about and you run it around like a marker on the midsole and the heel stack, and it dyes everything really well. And then after that is all dried up and you have it how dark you would like it, the third step is to burnish that leather back up. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this. Essentially what you want to do is get the leather damp and then apply some friction to it. And so I use gum Terragamp and just apply a little bit to dampen up the leather. You can just use water and then find some way to apply friction to the leather. So this can be with a microfiber cloth. You might even be able to get this with your finger if you start rubbing hard enough. I use one of these burnishing tools. You do not need to get a nice wood one. You can, if you're looking to order one of these, get a cheap plastic one or even a bone one, wood. It can be whatever you would like. But honestly, if you don't do a lot of leather working, save the money. Just use a nice cloth you have around the house and burnish that up. And in burnishing, what you're going to do is you're going to actually seal up the pores in that leather, so it's tougher or more difficult for it to absorb water again. And you'll have a boot that looks far closer to how it did when you first received it. It's going to be a little bit more durable, as it isn't going to soak up water as easy, and it's going to look great. So I hope this is helpful, and you guys can keep your boots looking nice and healthy and good looking for as long as you use them. Thanks, guys.